In a previous video which I will link below, I described the nature of thought forms, large thought forms in particular, and specifically I described the creation and the development of large unconsciously created thought forms like Santa Claus. I ended that video with a simple question, which was, is Santa Claus real? And if so, could a person use this huge thought form to get the presents that they want? I answered simply then by saying that, if a person could theoretically tap into the Santa Claus frequency, if they could tap into this great reservoir of power, then yes, they quite possibly could get just what they wanted from Santa. In this video I want you to contemplate a theoretical, just for fun kind of thought experiment with me. What I will be discussing specifically is how someone could potentially tap into that power, into that frequency, which is that large conglomeration of energy and relative sentience that has been created around the no longer fictional, as I will explain in the video, character of Santa Claus. In other words, in this video, I want to outline a really simple, but for educational purposes only, procedural system that could be used to tap into the large and for the most part unconsciously created thought form of Santa Claus, as it exists out there in non-local space, and use that connection to get something that someone might want for Christmas, or for that matter at any time during the year perhaps. To begin this little thought experiment, if you will pardon the pun, I want to start by giving a brief description of what thought forms are, specifically large unconscious thought forms, which some have referred to as egregors. A general definition used by the average world states that egregors are distinct non-physical entities that arise from a collective group of people. To this I would add that an egregor is a massive thought form, and that it is the attention of other people, the thinking of people in a certain direction, that creates such an entity, and that this kind of created entity is most often brought to life, at least from a non-physical perspective, in a relatively unconscious manner, meaning that this collective group of people is most often acting in what could be termed mob-like fashion, meaning that there is little conscious individual effort to try to create such a large thought form. For that reason, this developed entity is brought into existence by, in a way, accidental means, as a relatively large mass of humanity focuses their non-conscious attention, with sometimes great vigor, on a particular set of characteristics and bounding principles. The action of focusing the attention here is very important, as is the realization that this focus of attention is often not a conscious thing, that is, this focus of attention by humanity is usually done in an unconscious manner, as a large mass of people are led to think about or focus on a particular topic, a set of characteristics, a probability, through external group pressure. This mass of focus, which could be thought of as a kind of gravity, which can be random or externally controlled, goes about turning a probability into an actual thing. In other words, non-conscious attention turns supposed fiction into a semi-autonomous non-local, meaning not here or there in physical space, kind of relatively real thing, which can act upon, change the nature of, physical reality to a relative degree, depending on how much attention this egregor has and is getting. This is a very important definition in these modern times. It can explain a great deal about the nature of human reality, and if you are interested in such things, then I would recommend that you rewind the video a bit and listen to that definition again, because it is the key piece that will explain a great deal about the human world. Anyway, to begin to understand this from the perspective of this video, we can begin by defining first what a consciously created thought form is, something which I have in the past referred to as a servitor. A servitor is a very consciously developed mental creation. It is a thought that is given form through the intense focus of attention. In other words, a servitor is a consciously created thought form of strong definition and vitality that has very specific function. This intense focus of attention by the creator of the servitor propels a kind of psychic energy essence into this form, until this form attains a relative physicality within three-dimensional space. This means that a thought begins to become a thing. This is true transmutation of energy and allows for the creation of specific life-like entities with varied functionality. The creation of a servitor requires a great deal of conscious focus, which I have said in other instances is something that a practitioner needs to develop over time. Attention is energy. Consciously directed attention in a very specific direction equals psychic power, which can be focused with great nuance and detail, and in that fashion, it is possible to create intricate entities, which are in essence thoughts that are given form, function, and direction. A particular individual, who has developed a great deal of ability to focus, can create intricate and quite powerful servitors. These servitors can carry out a number of particular and precise tasks, including the ability to acquire, or that is, make it far easier to acquire, through the use of synchronicity, omens, and a number of other factors, whatever it is that the creator of the servitor wants. And what it is that these servitors can acquire, can do, is directly proportional to the power level of the servitor, which again is measured in accordance with the amount of focused attention that this servitor has received by its creator. Just like a consciously created servitor, an unconsciously created egregor can develop over time in very similar manner, but a thought form like Santa Claus is not, as I have said, a conscious creation, it is instead an unconscious and freewheeling one. But under certain and controlled instances, theoretically and for the sake of this thought experiment only, such a free-roaming, as it were, thought form of massive scale, could be used for a number of different tasks, if a person has an understanding of how to tap into this power, and has worked on their own power level, as I discuss in my books, so that their focus of attention, their psychic power, is strong enough to contain the power of the tapped into egregor. First, to begin in explaining the little thought experiment that I am describing in this video, I can start by saying that an unconsciously created servitor can, in some ways at least, be far more powerful than a consciously created thought form or servitor. The reason for this is that an unconsciously created thought form can attain incredibly large proportions and power, being that this entity is being fed the attention of a very large number of people. For example, the now quite vigorous and powerful thought form of Santa Claus is quite powerful, because it is and has been fed a great deal of human attention, as thousands, hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of people focus their attention on this symbol, this character, this bounded ideal of a particular personality that has certain properties and features, such as for example the ability to bring gifts to not just children, but adults as well on December 25th. Every time that we think about him, sing songs about him, watch movies about him, see effigies and cathedrals created for him in malls, outdoor venues, and television programs, we are quite intently focusing our attention on him. The Christmas tree in and of itself is like a kind of antenna that can at times focus our attentions not only on the Christmas season in general, but on Santa Claus in particular on occasion. Certainly, the expectance and hopeful desires of finding some wonderful present under the tree can create a great deal of attention and therefore psychic energy that is focused on this personality. There is, though, at least within adults, this modified filter within the parameters of the attention given to Santa Claus, which is most important when and if such a Santa Claus thought form were to be tapped, and this filter is the fact that adults tend to think that Santa is fictional. It is generally only children, in their innocence, that truly believe that Santa is real and can get them those things that they desire if they are good. To tap into the true power of this egregor then, a person would have to be able to believe with the innocence of a child. Understanding the general characteristics of this massive thought form, such as the distinction mentioned about childlike belief, is crucial in tapping into it. As such, we must note that this is an unconscious creation, meaning that the attention that it is given comes about through a kind of manipulation, a mob-created ideal through the manipulation of beliefs, advertising, and endlessly repeated media of all sorts. This means that this huge thought form can have some potentially negative and chaotic aspects attached to it. For example, during this holiday season, media advertising and perhaps old-held beliefs in the form of customs are brought forth. The symbols and advertising are everywhere, and it is nearly impossible to go anywhere without seeing the image of Santa Claus somewhere, or the many other symbols that then relate and can become a kind of antenna, like the Christmas tree, that can have one thinking about Santa Claus constantly. Therefore, due to the fact that this is an unconscious creation, being that it is driven by the mob of humanity, not all of this attention can be of a positive nature, and as such the thought form that is Santa Claus is also made up of all of the frustrations, the disappointments, the guilt, and some of the negativity that goes along with the holiday season, not the least of which is the fact that it is only children generally that believe in a true Santa Claus, while adults usually tend to view Santa Claus as a fictional and at times a difficult ideal that they must live up to, as they try to give to others in seasonal merriment. As such, Santa can at times take on certain characteristics that are not completely positive from the human point of view. In other words, the thought form that is Santa Claus can take on the characteristics of Krampus or Satan Claus, as it were, at times. To put all this together then, being that Santa Claus is an unconscious creation of huge proportions, this particular thought form or egregor can have both positive and negative aspects that can sometimes lead the unwary in chaotic and unwanted directions. The point being then that to theoretically tap into this force is not something that should be taken lightly, and at all times, a strong focus on the goodness aspects of Santa Claus would be most essential. To perform such a theoretical experiment, one would have to believe in Santa as a child believes, focusing for a short period only on the sheer goodness of this being, and for no longer than 5 minutes or so. During this time, the first thing that one would do is tap into this thought form, into the frequency of the large conglomeration of non-local energy that has taken on the characteristics of Santa Claus. In order to do this, a person would need to go to a place full of all of the symbology, that is paraphernalia of Christmas and Santa Claus in particular. Such a person, for example, would need to stand in front of a large and beautifully decorated Christmas tree. If it is available, they might want to add to this environment images of Santa in whatever way they could find them, whether that is Christmas cards, posters, small statues, or whatever else might be available. During this tapping into process, what they would need to do is to focus their attention on Santa Claus and all of the positive aspects of Christmas. To be precise, they would need to focus their attention on the idea of a Merry Christmas in the way a child would, and as their attention becomes more and more focused, this attention would generate feelings and increasing internal perceptions of how in the Christmas season it is possible to receive, just like a good boy or girl can receive, anything that they want. A childlike quality is most important in all of this. This unrelenting focus of this Merry Christmas would in time allow such a person to truly feel deep in their core that a season's miracle is possible for them, then probable, then most likely, then definite, until they would know that Santa is bringing to them everything that they could have ever wanted. For these 5 minutes in this place surrounded by Christmas, they would need to believe this completely. As the northern star shines, and as the beautiful and infinitely unique snow falls, as the beautiful multicolored lights flicker, as the bells of Christmas ring, and as the light of infinite hope and brotherly love gleams, they focus their attention on the fact that like a child, they can believe that this miraculous light becomes all-powerful during this magical season, and as they do so, as they can truly believe in this light, they believe also that this light in time, and through the great focus and the goodwill of people, because there is goodwill and that goodwill is greater than all things, this goodwill that is the embodiment of Santa, the elf known as Claus, will bring them what they want. They must ask during this time with childlike abandon and innocence for something that they truly desire, that they truly want, as they know that Santa Claus can and is bringing it to them in joy. A total lack of self-importance would be critical. Once they feel that they have expressed their desire to Santa as best they can, while encompassed within the miraculous light of the season, they would let out a deep breath, and from that moment forth begin to expect to receive in faith, in childlike faith in Santa Claus, and believing from that point on that Santa is real, that he is not fiction, but that he is real. Interesting thought experiment I feel, and more importantly perhaps, is the description of what these thought forms are, how they are made and what they can do to change the face of this human world. If, let us say, this experiment did work, if this Santa could bring this imaginary person what they want, or a modicum of what they want, if it could at the very least put them on the path towards getting what they want, then what does this say about what is possible now, by these purely mental constructions, these massive thought forms given life through the unconscious focus of human attention? If such massive thought forms have such power, then perhaps it is a wise idea to become far more conscious of what you give your attention to. If you are interested in the topic of what is possible for thought forms and servitors, I will leave a link to my books on servitor creation, which are How to Create a Servitor, How to Create a Servitor Companion, and Manifest Wealth and Prosperity with Thought Forms and Servitors. I feel that these books will give you a great deal of insight into thought forms and servitor creation if you are interested. I will also leave a link to my book, Overcoming the Archon Through Alchemy, which describes how such massive thought forms in mimetic-like fashion can and do change the face of the world. Finally, I will also leave a link to a free article on my webpage on servitor creation which you might find quite useful, and I urge you to also read the comments below as they are, I believe now, the largest reservoir of information on servitors available. I do hope that in these interesting times, you do manage to have a truly Merry Christmas.